Welcome back to Arielpaints. Today I'm going to paint this awesome sugar skull. I had so much fun painting this that Arielpaints just may turn into an all sugar skull, glam skull, and all things skull channel from now until November. This was so gratifying for me to paint and just really motivated me to continue painting, which I know is hard for all of us right now, but I am reading a book called The 5 Second Rule that is about how motivation isn't real and you have to start doing something to truly then be quote unquote motivated. And I think there's a lot to be said for that because when I actually sit down and force myself to paint or talk myself into painting, or even if I fail at a design, I then am more motivated to keep going. So please stick with me, keep watching my channel, and I hope you learn something, and I hope you guys like this design. I'm starting with a mix of black and brown StarBlends on a disposable smoothie blender. Now, StarBlends, for my new face painters out there, is a powder by Mayron. So unlike water activated face paint where you need water and the paint and you mix them together to create the pigment that you're going to put on the skin, this is just a pressed powder. There are multiple different kinds of smoothie blenders that you can purchase. This particular one is the quote-unquote disposable smoothie blender. However, they're very durable, so I actually do rewash them and use them multiple times. I do not just toss them. I also chose to mix black and brown because it gives you more of a shadowy gray look. Sometimes when you try to do just black powder, it looks like you're trying to get a deep, dark, rich black and you're not achieving the look you're going for. By mixing the brown and black together, I'm getting more of an intended color rather than fighting what I can't achieve. Instead of filling in the eye socket with a complete and perfect circle, I am giving it almost like a very subtle butterfly shape in the corner. This is going to allow for a little bit more structure to the sugar skull eye rather than just one oversized circle. Never quite looks right to me. Now I'm going to load up a 3/4 inch brush by the face painting shop with this fusion red called Cardinal Red, which is the perfect true primary red. And I bought quite a few different reds before I found this one, and it's like the perfect Spider-Man red. I highly, highly recommend it. And I'm going to essentially create my own split cake by dipping the toe of this brush in black and running it over the cake. I now have a red and black split. You can do a number of different kinds of flowers as the headpiece or crown piece to this design. I'm doing a bit of a modified rose, but I want it to have that dramatic kind of red rose feel, which is why I'm doing the red and black. You can see I'm going over it multiple times to make sure that it's as even as possible and in the center of my forehead. And then I'm going to do 2 petals on either side as well and let it dry before I continue to layer it up. Now I'm going to do some teardrops under the eye just to frame it and to add some intricate design. If you have a heavy hand, I would use a number 4 for this, but I believe this is a number 6 low Cornell, and it's just an amazing brush because as you can see, when I'm pressing down to start that teardrop, I get that beautiful rounded edge, and then as I glide up towards the end of the teardrop, I get that nice peak. So it's just a beautiful brush to use for teardrops. When you're doing a symmetrical design, use the facial structures as a roadmap. I am looking at where that teardrop ended on one side and comparing it to where my nose is, and that's how I know where to lay my brush down on the opposite side of my face to get a symmetrical design. This works the same way if you're doing a butterfly or if you're matching up teardrops. Use things like the ears, the edges of the lips, the eyebrows, even the hairline to help guide your brush as to where a good starting and stopping point is. It's such an easy thing to do, but I think people get kind of tripped up on not looking at the features of the face to really guide you in your face painting. So I'm just filling in this teardrop design right underneath the eye. It's very Art Deco and very simple, but this series of teardrops creates a very intricate design very quickly that can be repeated on other parts of the face as well. So if you wanted to say skip the flower on the chin that I'm going to do and repeat this design on the chin, you can do that very easily at an event without switching brushes. To frame the eye, I'm going to start on the tip of my brush and just go around my eyebrow, but towards the outside edge, I am going to push down so that I have a very distinct variance in my line. It's starting out thin, getting thicker on the outer edge, and then going back to thin again. The whole time, I'm making sure to honor and keep that original shape I created with the smoothie blender because, again, I want that more defined butterfly shape to this rather than one big round circle. For the bottom part, I am going to keep it a little bit thinner because it's going to add to the variance of the design, having thicker and thin lines in specific places where I want the accent to be more dramatic, and then getting a little thinner in other places. Now that the first layer of my flower is dry, I'm going to add a second layer, and I'm just going to be mirroring the petal shapes that I've put down prior, only without the peak in the center. And for the jawline, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of cut the jaw and create one thick line with a swoop at the bottom. And again, looking at my facial structure and the design I already have placed down so that I have a guide in my head as to where I want to end that swirl. And this is going to help you get a much more symmetrical look. Doesn't have to be perfect because people aren't really going to be analyzing your design that specifically. But if you look at the corner of the eyes and where your last teardrop ended and those kind of things, it's a great guide to help you. Use the face and the existing parts of your design as a roadmap for the rest of your design, and you're going to have a more symmetrical look in the end. I'm going to add a small cluster of teardrops right in between my eyes underneath my flower. Very often in designs, I see people sometimes trying to put so many different elements in to create something when really the obvious thing of repeating an element that is already a central theme in your design can be the simplest and most effective way to complete the final look. And just a few dots going down the nose will complete that element. The nose is just going to be an upside down heart, but keep it small. You don't want this to overwhelm the design. I'm going to do the center of the rosebud, and you might have to go over this a few times or even touch it up with a little bit of red or black. This combo is hard to get that really crisp definition, so you want to continue to reload your brush with your kind of homemade one-stroke combo, but in the end, if you have to touch it up, go for it. I do have a very detailed video on how to do roses if anybody needs help with that, which I will also link above. But roses can be tricky. You have to give it time and a lot of practice, but once you perfect them, they are quite easy to do. So I'm going to grab Fern from this amazing new palette by Fusion, which are all the Nats Gold Collection one strokes, and each one is gorgeous, but Fern is one of my all-time favorite combinations. Very often when you're going to add green to a design, it's like a primary green or even something more jewel toned. It can really take away from the sophistication of the design, but using this golden with the neon green and the brown adds such a sophistication to your leaves, and it's so good for so many other designs, dinosaurs, snakes, you name it. So huge fan. If you haven't checked out the line with Fusion and Nat's Gold Collection, please go check it out. To do the leaves, you definitely want to switch to a smaller brush. I would suggest a 1/2 inch or a 5/8 inch angled brush like I'm using, or I do end up switching to a dagger brush. A dagger brush has longer bristles, so it allows for a little bit more flexibility, and I find it to be much easier to use than this 1/2 inch, but use whatever you're comfortable with. So I'm just moving around that top crown and I'm placing leaves where I think they can add some additional value to the design. And then I'm dragging the toe of that brush with the black through, creating a tail at the edge of the leaves, as well as creating the little segments of the leaves and veins as well. If you have any gaps but not room for full leaf, just press and pull down to create those little strikes, almost like vines or half leaves, and that will fill in the space without you trying to squeeze something in that's not going to fit. You can do the same at the top or anywhere where you need some balance. Just pull your brush down and you'll get that. Here's where I switch to that dagger brush as well. It's just so much easier for me to manipulate than a half inch. I find a half inch to be kind of stiff because there are more bristles and it's shorter. This has fewer bristles and they're elongated. So it's just a different painting experience. But again, use whatever you see fit. So I'm just going to go ahead and create some rosebuds above the jawline on both cheeks. And then I'm going to add some leaves to the side as well, kind of like creating little rosebud bunches on the sides. If you're at a busy event or you have a long line, this is one of those steps that can be skipped. So you don't have to do it, but I do find that it created a really nice balance and I love the way it looked in the end. So I'm going to continue to fill in the rosebuds on my cheeks, and then I'm also going to do one on the chin. You may notice as well that I'm doing this in strategic layers. So I did the first layer on the cheek, and then I went down and I did the first layer on the chin, and now I'm going back to the first layer that I did on one side of the cheek, and then I'll bounce back from the chin to the other side of the cheek. This allows for those first layers to dry so that when I go back in to do my second layer, it's not getting all muddied up. So it's just about a little bit of balance and a little bit of planning, and that way you can move around the design quickly and efficiently. I'm going to add a few red teardrops on the corner of the eye as well. And then I'm going to move back down to finish the rosebud at the chin. I do like putting a chin element in designs for sugar skulls, but I try to make the chin design smaller than our big focal headpiece. It is all about balance, and if you end up making that really, really large at the bottom of the face, it's just going to take away from what we really want to be the true focal point, which is the eyes and the forehead piece. So I'm going to continue to add a few leaves, and then I'm going to drag the tip of that dagger brush around to create some of the whimsical line elements as well, and do my best to stop before I get it to be too crazy and too busy. Now I'm going to add leaves around the rosebuds on the cheek, and at certain places where I don't feel like a whole leaf will fit, I'm just going to drag the toe of that dagger brush and I'm just going to draw in a leaf. This is actually a really simple way to add a lot of detail very, very quickly, and it's quite impressive without ever having to grab your liner brush or switch brushes. I do this very often on arm designs at festivals as well. At this stage, when everything dries, if you do feel like the black and the red ended up blending together a bit much, you can always grab your liner brush and just give it a little bit of definition with black. I'm just quickly giving the rosebuds a swirl so they really stand out as rosebuds, and adding a little bit of lining to my main flower just to differentiate from the layers so that everything is standing out and is nice and crisp. I added a touch of red to my pink lipstick so that it coordinates a little bit better with my design. And then I'm going to add some teardrops underneath my rosebuds on my cheeks. I'm going to mirror what is under my eyes just on a smaller scale so that I don't feel like that's an empty hole. And then I decided to draw in just a few little leaves with black because I really enjoy the layered detail of that. Added a few more dots to the design as well. And instead of doing sugar skull teeth or doing the line through my lips with hash marks for teeth, I decided just to outline my lips. I want this to be a very elegant and feminine look, and if I did the cartoony lines. I feel like it was really going to take away from that. And this is a look that's something I'd want to wear on Halloween and wear all night long. So instead, I'm going to go more for a graphic effect, and I'm just going to line my lips. It's going to make sure that my lips feel like they're part of the design without overpowering everything or taking away from it. So I also want to line my eyes, and instead of fighting with that corner where my cat eye would normally be, I'm actually just going to feed right into that line, and I'm just going to exaggerate it so that my liner becomes a part of the design. And this will give my eyes just a little bit of pop and accentuate them. You can also line under the eyes. And of course, if you're doing this on a client or for yourself for Halloween, feel free to use eyeliner instead of face paint. But face paint will work just fine as long as you don't go too close to the eye. You don't want this on the waterline because it will make your eyes water and could even make them sting. So just be careful. I'm also going to take a mix of the black and brown StarBlends, and I'm just going to smudge out the area above that flower where it doesn't quite meet my hairline. I didn't really want to drag paint into my hairline, but I don't like how that negative space is sticking out. So this is a really easy way to blur negative space without having to drag paint into the hairline, and I think it looks much better. Highlighting this design, I would keep it pretty simple. I decided to go with gold. I'm using Fab Gold. I really like Fab's metallics. I have silver, the gold, and I believe bronze, and they're beautifully pigmented. I would avoid doing white. It would create a very, very harsh look. The gold allows for there to be a nice highlight and some shine while maintaining the elegance of the design. I'm not going to outline everything. I'm just going to do some very loose, kind of squiggly highlights to make sure some elements are going to pop, but I'm not going to do this throughout the entire design. It's just not necessary. And our last and final step is adding some glitter. This is Stardust. It's the glitter cream by American Body Art, and it is beyond fabulous. I am going to pack this over my eyes very heavily so that they are sparkly and shining. And man, this was beautiful in person. The camera picks it up quite well, but in person it was striking. Those of you who have stuck around and made it to the very end of the video, get rewarded because you will be the first to know that in October I am going to have a giveaway with Fusion Body Art. They have offered to sponsor a giveaway for my viewers on Instagram and on YouTube. So if you don't follow me on Instagram and you don't follow Fusion Body Art, go follow them now. I will be posting official rules of how to enter, but I will be announcing it on my YouTube channel. So if you don't already subscribe and have the bell hit, please ring the bell, and that way you'll get notified because it will be announced in October. I will, of course, post the official rules of what you have to do to enter, but you guys will be the first to know, so you have a head start. So keep an eye out because Fusion has very generously offered to give you guys a gift, and I am very excited. As always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time.